Good morning. Welcome to First UU. My name is Jennifer Dunn. You've seen me light the candles, but this is the first time I have the privilege of speaking for a moment. If this is your first time here, or your third, or your 50th, we welcome you. Let us begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Niukanska people, known sometimes by the name Osage. The descendants of the people who were forcibly removed from this land make up the Osage Nation. We acknowledge their continued struggle for justice. And for the chalice lighting, the words are "Always a Voice Arises" by Reverend Scott Taylor. As we light this flame, may we hear what it has to say. Come back to your center, it calls. Return to the quiet, it whispers. The quiet we long for, and that longs for us. From this stillness, always a voice arises, if we let it. So come, friends, let us listen once again. Let us find that flame inside that guides us back home. The chalice lighter in the sanctuary today was Rebecca Holt. Thank you.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Good morning. My name is Jessie. My pronouns are they, them. And again, this is my first time speaking this morning. Our opening words are Many Perspectives by Reverend Beckett Coppola. Spirit of life, we know there are as many perspectives and experiences of living here in this room as there are people. Spirit of love, please guide us gently into appreciating and listening. Assist us to honor each other in conversation and deeply hearing so that we can see the gift of a collective. Show us how we can find understanding by learning to speak one another's language so that we may go deeper into our beliefs and connection through a personal, communal, and perpetual evolution. Breath of light, of life. Give us the patience to live into this faith of community, the curiosity to ask loving questions of each other, and allow us to be always expanding our spiritual awareness of the worlds within and without. Inspiration that is this life, we offer our gratitude for the comings and goings, beginnings and endings, through which we have each been granted the opportunity to reflect with openness, both upon what is within our individual experience and that which is within another's. Blessed be. Our song of the month, for the month of October, is Do You Hear, number 112 in the Gray Hymnal. I invite you now to rise in body or spirit to sing.
Do you hear, O my my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land. Do you hear? Do you hear? In the heights on the plain, in the vale on the main, in the sun, in the rain. Do you hear? Do you hear? Through the roar, through the rush, through the throng, through the crush, do you hear in the hush of your soul, of your soul? Hear the cry, fear won't still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh's startling trill in your soul, in your soul. From the place where you stand to the outermost strand, do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear, do you hear? All the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers, they are yours, mine and theirs. Do you hear, do you hear?
Good morning. My name is Anna Ray. My pronouns are she, her. I've got a floral skirt on and a very hot sweater that's soon going to be taken off. Today, we're exploring why it is important to listen to everyone, not just those with the loudest voices. So to get us started, I want to share a story with you. This story is called "I Have a Little Problem," said the bear. And it's about a bear that can't get anyone to listen to him. Let's dive in and see what happens.
I have a little problem, said the bear. By Heinz Janisch. Illustrated by Silke Leffler. I have a little problem, said the bear. You see, Of course, said the inventor. I know exactly what you need. A heavy bear like you needs something to make them feel lighter. I have just the thing. He got a pair of wings from his workshop and fastened them to the bear's shoulders. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along, looking worried. I have a little problem, said the bear. You see, indeed I do, said the tailor. Your wings are very handsome, but you need a scarf. And he wound a long scarf around the bear's neck. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along, looking worried. I have a little problem, said the bear. I'm just the man you're looking for, said the hatter. Now don't say a word. I have just the thing for you. And he placed a fine hat on the bear's head. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along, looking worried. I have a little problem, said the bear. I can tell that just by looking at you, said the doctor. My special vitamins will have you fit as a fiddle in no time. He handed the bear a box of vitamins. Take one every morning. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along, looking worried. I have a little, said the bear. Problem, said the street vendor. But I have the cure. This little charm will bring you good luck wherever you go. And he hung a silver pig on a chain around the bear's neck. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along looking worried. I have a, said the bear. Well, I can see you have a problem, said the eye doctor. That's why I'm here. She placed a pair of glasses on the bear's nose. Now, isn't that better? Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along looking worried. I have, said the bear. A little problem? Said the shopkeeper. Well, never you worry, my dear. This honey will sweeten up your life in no time. And she handed the bear a jar of honey. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along looking worried. I, said the bear. You have a problem, said the shoemaker. You need boots. She pulled a pair of boots from a box. A real bear needs real bear boots, she said. And these are the best bear boots I have. A perfect fit. Said the bear. Then he shrugged and went along looking worried. At the top of a hill, the bear stopped. He looked back over the town and shook his head. He was worn out. The bear unfastened his wings. He took off his hat and scarf. He took off his glasses and the pig on a chain. He kicked off his boots. He set his vitamins and honey on the ground. Then he sat down on the hill and sighed. What's the matter? Asked the fly on a blade of grass beside him. I don't want to talk about it, said the bear. No one listens to me anyway. I'm listening, said the fly. Tell me about it. I have a little problem, said the bear. You see, I'm afraid of the dark, alone in my cave. There are no other bears for miles around, and I don't know anyone who wants to sleep in my cave with me. I dread the darkness all day long. That really is a problem, said the fly, but I have a solution. It just so happens that I am looking for somewhere to live. A bear's cave sounds very cozy. I could move in with you. What do you say? Said the bear. I feel better already. So the fly hopped onto the bear's shoulder, where she made herself comfortable. Then off they went together, looking happy. The end.
Hey friends, this is Miss Dorisman speaking. I hope you enjoyed our story today. Be sure to subscribe to read more amazing books with me. So, until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep growing.
Hello again, I'm Jessie. Our offering our gifts to support the work of building inclusive and just communities is one of the many ways that we live into justice and equality together. Some of us have much to give and some have little, and together it is enough. We are enough to work together for a world where every human can live into their best and most authentic self. If electronic giving is your preferred method, or if you are on Zoom, virtual giving options are available via our website, springfielduu.org. The offertory today is Alleluia by Randall Thompson performed by the choir.
Thank you to the choir. That was wonderful. Good morning. I am Reverend Michelle Scott Huffman. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the minister here at First UU.
No, I just. You okay?
I am a middle-aged woman with short spiky hair, that's more salt than pepper. Wearing black pants and a black and white plaid shirt, and my pronouns are she, her. So you may or may not know that we arrange our Sunday morning services around themes that we call Soul Matters themes. And those themes are being used by a whole bunch of other UU congregations. And so there is some synchronicity in the thing that we're talking about with other UUs all around the world even. And there's a particular formula in the way they name those themes each year. And so this year, the formula for the name of the themes is living love through the practice of, and then the theme for the month. And so this month it's deep listening. We often say it in shorthand. So we just say that last part. But I think in this part, in this conversation, the whole thing is kind of important. So this month's theme is living love through the practice of deep listening. And I know that for some folks in this room, a phrase like that could potentially cause an eye roll, or maybe just a complete checkout. But before you do that, let me take a moment to connect what may seem like a new touchy-feely, fluffy concept to one of our forebears, who I think was not exactly fluffy. Henry David Thoreau published his first book in 1849, right? And he couldn't find a publisher. He had to self-publish it. He had about 1,000 copies, and then he had a publisher that was finally storing them, and then they got tired of storing them, and so they told him he had to store them himself. So at some point he ends up saying, I have nearly 1,000 books in my library, and 2/3 of them were authored by me. And so this book is called A Week on the Concord and Merrimack Rivers. And it is part memoir and part commentary on poetry and religion and history. And he's sort of weaving things through the story of this 2-week trip that he and his brother take on the Concord and Merrimack Rivers. And in that book, one of the things that he writes is this: he that hath love and judgment too sees more than any other do. It will make a man honest. It will make him a hero. It will make him a saint. It is just the state of the just dealing with the just, and the magnanimous with the magnanimous, the sincere with the sincere, man with man. As it is well said by another poet, why love among the virtues is not known, is that love is them all contract in one. All the abuses which are the object of reform with the philanthropist, the statesman, and the housekeeper are unconsciously amended in the intercourse of friends. A friend is one who incessantly pays us the compliment of expecting from us all the virtues, and who can appreciate them in us. It takes two to speak truth, one to speak and another to hear. How can one treat with magnanimity mere wood and stone? If we dealt only with the false and dishonest, we should at last forget how to speak truth. Only lovers know the value and magnanimity of truth, while traitors prize a cheap honesty, and neighbors and acquaintance a cheap civility. Henry David Thoreau, not fluffy. So it's possible that if Thoreau had the benefit of 21st century language, he might himself have written the phrase living love through the practice of deep listening. There's a lot to unpack in the passage that I read, but the thing that stands out most prominently to me in this moment is Thoreau's contrast between lovers and traitors as conversation partners. The thing that brings to mind for me is the sheer amount of our communication that is transactional rather than transformative. The problem with transactional communication was demonstrated in the video with the bear. Transformative conversation is conversation wherein we all enter into the space of conversation with a willingness to come out different than we went in, without having our own agenda about proving our rightness, without needing to save, fix, or advise another person, without it just being the thing that we're supposed to do when we pass each other. Hi, how are you today? I'm fine. Thanks. How are you? I'm fine. Good. Okay. We check. We did the thing. Transactional communication takes up so much of our days and so much of our energy that we don't have the space for transformational communication. And it's in transformational communication where we get to practice deep listening. Alan Seale has written, "Deep listening is an art. It is a combination of presence, awareness, intention, focus, and holding space. It's about creating an open, welcoming, safe space for the speaker that allows what wants to be said to come out. How you listen can change everything." And so today's conversation is both about to whom we listen and how we listen. I did a thing this morning before the 10 o'clock RE experience where I might have had to run home and get something and then come back, and which takes, 50 minutes. And so I was running behind and I went downstairs to the Spirit in Practice group, and I plunked around and just sort of made my presence known to people who were already there. And I said, if someone could just pass around that sign-in sheet, and everyone looked at me and they were like, you were the one who wasn't here. Like, we've already done the thing, right? And it's so common in this society, in our business world, in our nonprofit world, in our church world, where people come in to a thing that's already been happening and sort of make their presence known. And without listening to where people are and to what's going on, start making demands or asking questions that the answer would already be obvious if there were listening involved, right? We've all heard of corporations that bring in new management and they're going to clean house and they're going to change the way things are done. And nobody bothered to listen to the people who have been doing the jobs for decades. And as it turns out, it doesn't work because they don't know what they're talking about. There's a concept in the disability advocacy world that says nothing about us without us. And that's not true just in disability advocacy, but in any space where people are involved, right? But especially marginalized groups of people. One of the ways that we tend to operate in kind of the Western world is that those of us who are a part of kind of majority groups who have come to think of ourselves as normative in some way, think we have all the answers. And for instance, when we talk about poverty, we say, Well, if the people living in poverty had the ability to figure it out, they wouldn't still be living in poverty. But the reality is the people in the majority who think of themselves as the norm and the people with the resources and the power have created systems in which the people living in poverty can't be lifted up out of that circumstance, not because they don't know what to do, but because the systems are built to work against them. And so I'm thankful for organizations that work in the nonprofit world where funders require that, for instance, at least half of the board of directors of a nonprofit organization must be people living below the poverty line. Because the people who hold the answers to all of the struggles and difficult situations in our world are the people who have lived experience with those things. And so a part of the way that we live love by deep listening is we listen to the people who are impacted by the problems that we want to solve. And they're not always problems. We don't even have to come at it as a problem-based conversation. But the people who know the things that we don't know. So part of this deep listening that we need to do is about thinking about who we're listening to and including more and more voices from the margins that will help us to hear the stories that aren't a part of our own experience. Because the same thing could be said by the people living with those struggles, looking at the people who have been running things for a long time. If they knew how to fix it, it would already be fixed. And so we have to start listening to one another. It's not just who we listen to, though, it's also how we listen to one another. So there's a man named Otto Scharmer. He's a senior lecturer at MIT and co-founder of the Presencing Institute and its U School for Transformation. So Scharmer talks about how we need to move from egosystems with a G to ecosystems where we might do co-creation. That when we are looking to find truth in a particular situation, we have to look to the people who might have the lived experience and to listen deeply, and that we have to take ourselves out of the center of other people's stories. Now, I don't know if there are people in here who care about the Enneagram. I'm an Enneagram 3. I don't know if anyone else is an Enneagram 3, but that means I am at the center of everyone's story. Right? In my mind, everything somehow revolves around my experience of it, and that's just not true. And when we're always thinking about where we are in someone else's story, we can't hear their full experience. And so one of the things that we have to do is to learn to listen in a way that we can hear the full experience. And then I'm going to talk about the kind of different ways of listening that Scharmer names. But there is a place sort of at the other end of the spectrum where we become co-creators with people whose stories we are able to hear, not because we're in the center of them, but because we find the ways that our stories connect and that we can then co-create and bring transformation. So for Scharmer, level 1 of listening is what he calls downloading. At this level, we listen from our habits and existing understanding in order to confirm what we already know or think we know. A social media echo chamber is a fantastic example of listening by downloading. We're simply reinforcing an existing story or worldview. We also call this confirmation bias. Nothing that contradicts that story finds its way into our brains. Scharmer says many organizational meetings exist at this level, as do many of the conversations that we have with our friends. So for many of us, downloading is our default setting. So someone may start a conversation and they may say something that we agree with and we're like, yes, absolutely. And then they go on to say things that add nuance, but we don't hear it because we heard what we needed to confirm that we were right and on the same page, and then we've kind of moved on. Sharma says that level 2 is factual listening. At the factual level, there's room for discordance. We start to notice things that don't necessarily fit with our point of view or story about the world. He says, a few weeks ago, I had a session with a new client. My guard was down, and given where I met this person and how they presented, I came into the meeting with a set of assumptions about who they were and what they sought, like the bear in the video. Within 10 seconds, this person presented data about themselves that contradicted those assumptions. And suddenly I was listening at a factual level. A window had opened that allowed for the potential of change. And so that nuance came into the conversation, but it didn't get blocked out because somehow there was an openness to what's different here than what I'm expecting to hear. Sharma says good science can happen at the factual level, the collection and investigation of conflicting data. But complex change happens at deeper levels, starting with the next level of listening, which is level 3, empathic listening. Empathy is one of the most powerful forces in human history and evolution. It's responsible for bringing us together in tribes, for bringing an end to interpersonal and even international conflicts, and for the success of every Pixar movie made to date. At this level, we are not just listening at a cognitive level. We're listening with the heart as an organ of perception. As we open to the feelings, experiences, and perspectives of another human being, we're able to see the situation and the world through a different lens. This creates an immediate emotional connection. Anyone who's ever been moved by a story or felt close to someone after they've shared a particularly vulnerable moment has experienced empathic listening. By their very nature, powerful stories invite empathy. And in fact, there's research that shows that centuries of evolution have wired our brains to respond to stories by releasing hormones that promote empathy. Empathy is powerful. But Sharma says even empathy is not enough to move into a place of growth, change, and development. We can think about that in relation maybe even to a Sunday service. We sit here in these seats and we hear something, not necessarily from me, but maybe from a reading or from some aspect of the service that moves us deeply. And we think, what am I going to do about that? How am I going to integrate that into our lives? And is anyone willing to say the day of the week that you've forgotten that? For me, it's probably Monday. Because I've moved on to next week, to the next groundbreaking conversation that we're going to have, right? But surely for a lot of us, we have forgotten the thing, the action, the change that we wanted to make based on what we heard and empathized with. So level 4 is generative listening. This is listening as a dynamic act of co-creation. When we open our will, letting go of thoughts, expectations, and urges as they come in, listening becomes about much more than what's being said. It becomes about what's not being said and about connection with future potential. At this level, we're fully present. It's the type of listening practiced by great coaches, leaders, and friends, those who listen to more than our words. They listen from a place of holding your highest, most fully realized possibility. This type of listening is hard to describe. So here are some signs that you may be listening generatively. Feelings of warmth moving through your body. An increase in energy as you listen, a sense of excitement. Sometimes I like to think of there are no scientific words, these particles in my brain, right? And that someone's saying something that I connect with, and I imagine them like heating up and moving, and they get really excited, right? And that's the beginning of this co-creative moment. I often talk about something that I call a theology of surprise. Which is the idea that we don't know what's possible until we get different voices and the right voices into a space. And my story sparks a conversation where someone else shares a story and someone else shares a story. And then there's this co-creative space where something begins to emerge out of it that wouldn't be emerging at all had we not been in that conversation, in that moment. And so this increase of energy, this excitement that begins to build, a feeling that something within you is shifting to a different level. Or it may go the other way. You may feel more grounded in your sense of self and purpose and connection. At the generative level, listening becomes much like a spiritual practice, connecting the listener or listeners and the speaker to something greater than ourselves. When we listen generatively, change happens at deep levels, and it can happen quickly. When we think back to the story of the bear, most of us have probably had that experience where we're trying to tell someone what our need is, but everyone already has the answer before they've even heard the need. And eventually we just get to the point where we say it's not worth it. And that's where a lot of people are in the society that we live in. It's not worth it. Nobody's listening to me. And so my hope is that as a part of this community, that's a skill and a practice and even a little bit of a gift that we cultivate, so that when people come into the space or when we encounter people out in the world, that they say, wow, those people really listen. They asked a question and then they listened to my answer. And they didn't just ask the question so that they could prove that the next thing they were going to offer was needed, but they asked the question because they were open to the possibilities. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Not just to be listened to, but to listen deeply. And I want to offer the possibility that we might live love through the practice of deep listening. I'll close with this quote from David Augsburger in his book, Caring Enough to Hear and Be Heard, How to Hear and How to Be Heard in Equal Communication. The quote is simply this: being heard is so close to being loved for the average person that they are almost indistinguishable. Blessed be, and amen. The interlude today is They Were You by Tom Jones and Harvey Schmidt, performed by Eva.
My name is Marilyn and I'm forgetful. I use she, her pronouns. And I usually help line up who's going to read Joys and Concerns, and apparently I signed up for one. As a community, we share joys and concerns to keep connected. Slips of paper are available at the greeters table for those in the sanctuary to use for joys and concerns. During the week, you may send your joys and concerns by email to pastoralcare@springfielduu.org or by leaving a voicemail on the church phone, 417-883-3922. If you're on Zoom, please use the chat box now for sharing your joys and concerns. There is no, oops. That needs to be, never mind. All of these joys and concerns will be included in the members' email on Tuesday. We honor each joy or concern with a lighted candle, a symbol of the love you and we as a community offer for each other of these joys and concerns. This morning, Jesse is lighting the joys and concerns candles. In this month of deep listening, as we realize that we are listening all the time, we might wonder about the benefits. So much of what we hear is noise. Deep listening invites us to listen beyond the noise. What are the smallest sounds we can hear? Choose to pay attention to these smaller sounds of voices. Surprisingly, as we listen for the softer sounds, the louder sounds fade, and we can be present to the heart sounds of ourselves and others. May we each seek and welcome the smallest sounds. And now, as we begin this time of sharing, know that though we are in multiple physical spaces, we are together in beloved community. To begin, we hold in love all of us, those present and those absent. We light a candle for our church community. I see no yellow slips up here. Let me check online. Seeing none, I have a concern, and that is Tuesday's election. It is for all of us a concern, I know. So let us light a candle of concern for our coming election.
Last night's trunk or treat outside was a smashing success.
A joy for the smashing success of last night's trunk or treat. Are there any others? We honor the complex and heartbreaking struggles of our world. We light a candle for all those who are impacted. In closing, we light a candle for those joys and concerns that remain unspoken. May we hold each of these in our hearts and minds. May our community of love ease sorrow and boost celebration. While we are in multiple physical spaces, we still share space together here in intentional community. And now let us join together in 1 minute of shared silence, followed by the singing of Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
My name is Becca Reynolds. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a redhead. Today I'm wearing a black dress with little pink and white flowers on it. Today's closing words come from the Reverend Emily Gage. May we open our hearts and minds to one another and the world. May we let ourselves be changed by the stories around us. May we deeply listen and be deeply listened to, and be held in silence and love. And so may it be. Our final hymn today is When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. It's number 1008 in the Teal hymnal. You'll also see the lyrics up on the screens. We invite you now to rise, if you'd like, and sing before our dismissal.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, when we weigh each us in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
As we prepare to extinguish our communal and personal chalices, I want to remind you that there is coffee and good conversation on that side of the building whenever we're done. So we will extinguish our chalice and then close with our unison closing words. Our service here is ending. Our service to the world begins anew. Go in peace, friends.